Hello, people of New World. It's me, Lemoni, and I'm back with my bread and butter. We're going to be talking PvP healing meta. So, as many of you know, the primary weapons for PvP healing are Void Gauntlet and Rapier. And Rapier's been nerfed slightly, and so it feels a little bit more clunky. Some people are shifting to Void Gauntlet. What I will tell you is you should be using a Greatsword. I don't know why nobody's been using this. This is day one. I theory crafted a build like this because I saw the opportunity, and it is absolutely absurd. The amount of defensiveness that you have, the amount of healing it gives you, and the mobility that you have is pretty much the exact same as a rapier, but you're just way tankier. You can block way more, and there's more that you can do to outplay other people. So if you're a person that likes to, for instance, avoid a shockwave and a stun, or you're a person that, hey, I got caught in a gravel, what am I going to do? Well, you have 2 escapes. Or if you just want to be really annoying, you know, when you'd have your riposte and you'd hit multiple people and how fun that'd be. Well, if you like CCing mass groups of people and knocking them back like 5 feet, Greatsword's definitely for you. It's easy to use. There's some nuances to it that we'll dig into, but ultimately we can talk build, we can talk gearing, we can talk optimization and the ideal scenario for it. And I can tell you too, I've been playing like 100 to 110 con in these clips, so I'm pretty squishy. Imagine when we're at 150 to 200. You just have so much tankiness that it is really hard for you to die if you're playing well. Ultimately, the Greatsword is going to be a healer's dream. It's something that is great for mobility through our spin and extra haste. It has an escape through that as well. You get extra fortify that keeps you alive an insane amount, to be honest. It gives you healing through all of the damage that you're doing on top of some extra damage from one of our abilities. And it gives you something that acts like a riposte, except it doesn't stun. It knocks people back, knocks them down onto the ground, staggers them, heals you, right? But then it doesn't just block one ability. It blocks everything that is coming at you until it is over. So all of that put together, so this damage reduction, mobility, healing, great thing that nobody has been using is going to start taking over the PvP meta. I've been using it even without a 600 gear score weapon just when I first got it. And people have been messaging me like, what are you doing? Are you memeing? Are you being legit? Is this a good move? I can confidently say Greatsword is the way to go. So strap in. We're going to talk build. We're going to talk gearing. We're going to talk optimization tips. I'm going to walk through how you should be using it, and let's get into this. All right, people, it feels good to be back in the skill trees. It's like riding a bike. So I got lots to say, lots to talk about. Ultimately, we're going to start with the life staff. I will say with the life staff, I want to make a more comprehensive guide about all the meta sorts of things related to the life staff, healing guide, PvP, PvE in general. So what I'm going to do now is kind of give you what my belief is that the meta PvP life staff builds are at this point in time. Ultimately, here are the points that you're going to be always taking regardless. I don't think it matters what variation of the life staff you go. You're going to be going Orb of Protection. That's because the absolute BIS perk in the game right now for a life staff is Mending Protection, and that being on a life staff. So when you go into Blessed and then you put Mending on your life staff, you're getting this huge healing increase because it's going to proc every time your hot proc or hits on everybody, and you have it running on so many different people that you will be having this massive healing increase all the time. So you're always going to be going into Orb, solid heal, fortifies nice, good little burst heal. You're going to always go into Absolved and Blissful Touch because this is just free healing. You're always going to go into Sacred Ground. Your bread and butter is always going to be Sacred and Orb. Now, what are your pivots? Sacred's things, fantastic. Pretty much your healing rotation is going to be, hey, let's put down Sacred, and then we're going to get our other heals rolling on top of our modifiers because this is going to give us a 50% increase regardless. Then we're going to go into Desperate Speed, Revitalize, Intensify, Sacred Protection. These are the bread and butter points. These are what you will always take no matter what. Now, what are the variations? 1, also, I guess 2, you're going to be taking always Bend, Light, and Protector Strength. So what are your ability variations? You can go Light's Embrace, and now with this build, I would highly suggest taking Inspire over Spirits United. You could take this for an additional baseline buff so that it always has a baseline heal increase. Then you'd go Enchanted Justice into Divine Blessing. This would be the Light's Embrace build. I've used this. I like to use it here and there, but ultimately I like using Divine Embrace a little bit better right now. This Inspire point is nuts. And on top of that, give yourself a little bit more haste comboed with our secondary weapon option. It is a lot of movement speed that you can get when you have Accelerating Light's Embrace on. Ultimately, not what I opt for generally, but still a solid build. What else can we do? Well, if we're going to stick with this, we can keep this exact same setup and then just put 2 points into Beacon, and now we have complete blanket AoE healing. So this is like what I would use in a war if I'm an AoE healer. I wouldn't actually take this 5 seconds because by the time your Beacon is done and you have, let's say, RE on your set, you've got these cooldown reductions proccing plus whatever else you have, This will be back up before you need it. So that's blanket healing. And then my kind of catch-all for PvE and PvP, I drop Enchanted Justice, point 2 points into Divine Embrace, and also grab that ultimate. So here, why do I like DE over LE? Well, one, if I'm running the perk, DE will give me a little bit of mana back, but also it'll reset the cooldown. So it's essentially about Light's Embrace cooldown. It'll go half of what its cooldown normally is. And then on top of that, when that happens, I also get it to bounce. This bounce happens more often than not. You'll see like health bars. The health bars in game versus in the top left corner do not match up. So sometimes you'll hit somebody that you think is over half health, and it's actually giving them the bounce because they're under half health. So Divine Embrace hits harder. It's a little bit nicer. It gives you a little bit more AoE spread because of shared struggle. I personally don't go into rebound. That gives you another bounce because 9 times out of 10, I'm not double bouncing to people who have 50%. And then we can put this point into additional healing. So this is the general TLDR. This is the general life staff, I think, meta build that I use for PvP and PvE. This is going to really do the trick. I think even in PvE, and I just think with the way that Mending Protection is, the way Orb works, that this is the most optimal setup for a life staff at this point in time. Now, let's talk Greatsword. This is going to be our secondary. There's going to be some of you out there that are like, all right, Lemoni, what about Onslaught side? We're going to be taking more damage. That's not going to feel too good. Let's start here. So as all of you know, Onslaught outgoing damage increased as well as damage taken increased. Then we get that quicker heavy attack. The heavy attack doesn't matter. Yes, we take 15% more damage. We're not going to be staying in Onslaught stance very much. So here's what we're going to do. We have the option of Heavy Blade or Giant Slayer. Ultimately, I take Giant Slayer because at the end of it all, we're going to end up with Undying Defiance. And this is most likely going to proc over this because we're never going to charge a heavy attack. And then we get some additional healing on some of our abilities. The big things with this are Onslaught Stance gives us a 20% haste boost for 5 seconds. That is one of the biggest reasons why we're taking this on top of what we can do with Relentless Rush. So our R is going to be our one ability on this side. What can I say about Relentless Rush? Well, one thing, I'm going to have a separate bookmark at the end of this for all of these abilities so I can tell you what you're able to do with it and dive into it a bit deeper and more comprehensively. So we're looking at Relentless Rush. 1, we get a dash that slows people. 20% slow for 4 seconds, that can make or break some chases, especially now that we get this 20% haste when somebody's trying to follow us after, we got caught in a clump, or we got caught in a grav well, or anything, or even just an open road fight. We can get away. We have a slow, we have a haste. We can just simply walk faster than them so they can't catch up. Now, with Relentless Rush, if you run the perk, you'll read it, and the modifier on it is that you get more crit chance with Relentless Rush. But the extra piece is that it kind of functions like a second perk to it. You now also remove any slow and any root. This means you get caught in an ice shower, ice storm root from an IG, you get screamed, you get anything like that, you RR, and boom, it's gone. Now you can get away, you also have this haste increase, and you're good to go. To add a little bit more to it, we can also take Critical Comeback. And Critical Comeback is going to make us energized, and every second for 5 seconds, we get 5 stand back and 5% base health back. So it's this little bit of a heal that, it can make or break. It could give us just enough more to get a little bit of a roll in, or just to keep ourselves alive. So this all together, it gives you a ton of CC peel, it gives you movement speed, and it helps you get out of pretty much any sort of scary scenario. On top of it, then puts a slow on everybody else. And because of this ultimate, which we will take, it also heals based on all the damage that we do. So it's a little bit of top end healing while you're in this movement speed. We're going to take Relentless Power, and then we're going to go into Adaptive Rush. Ultimately, these are kind of flex points. You could take Adaptive Rush, or you could take Relentless Refresh. I think Adaptive Rush is better because 9 times out of 10 when we use this, we're either going to be in defensive stance already, or we're not going to be in a stance. This won't create Onslaught stance until the ability ends. So we won't actually root anybody unless we've already been in Onslaught. So basically we're taking it so that we get 15% of its damage as healing, max 5 hits, to just keep ourselves topped off. So that's it for the Onslaught side. Now the Defiance side is what's really, really exciting with this. When we look at something like Calamity Counter, Calamity Counter is absolutely bis and broken. Why is it? Well, if you're a rapier enjoyer, you're used to your evade, you step, and you get some stamina back, right? You get that iframe. You're also used to having a riposte. Now, rapier's a little nerfed. You don't get stamina back unless you dodge an attack, and your riposte it only takes one hit, but then you can also be CC'd now while you're riposting. You could get hit in the back by something and you get CC'd. That's where Calamity Counter comes into play, and it takes both of those roles. So one, with Calamity Counter, it is a block. So it counts as a block. You do take stamina damage, so you have to be a little bit conscientious of your block bar and your stamina bar, before you use it, because it can break your block. But with the way that it works, we can use it as an evade step energy regen. So if you run the Calamity Counter perk on your weapon, you get 30 stamina back on use. So this creates a sort of interesting movement loop, as well as when you're going to start off with a block. So first with the block, you will use Calamity Counter and you'll just get 30 instant stamina. Great. Helps with blocking some stuff. Next, how can we use it for movement? Well, what you can do is, let's say you have Hardion. You have 110 stamina total. You're going to roll. You'll be at 60 stamina. Now you could roll and still be at 10. But for you to do a perfect loop, you can roll, be at 60, Calamity Counter, and then instantly roll to cancel it. You don't have to do anything. You won't finish out an animation. You'll just roll. And then you'll be back up to 90, which then you can roll after that Calamity Counter has happened. So then you'll be back down to 40 and then use your Relentless Rush. And I'll show this loop in a clip. And right as that Relentless Rush is ending the animation, you actually start to get ticks of your stamina back. So as soon as that goes back over 50, you can roll again, and it cancels the ending of that animation to save you some time and like the finish of the strike. And you have 20% haste to continue moving forward and get away from people. And now to add to that, we've also, if we ever got slowed or rooted in that process, they're all gone and we can just keep on running. Now, the other reason that Calamity Counter is incredible is it acts as a riposte, except it's a riposte that can get hit multiple times. So I can get hit as many times as I want throughout that 2-second duration of the ability. And now, depending on how many blocks you actually have, and you can see a little block counter when it comes up, if you block once, it'll just stagger everybody around you, which is still great. 2, it staggers a little bit longer and knocks them back slightly. And then with 3, you'll see as the earlier clip, you'll knock them back onto the ground and they're staggered, right? Obviously, if you knock them down. But if we also look at it, this ability has grid. So when you start the sword swing for it, which you can start early instead of the whole 2 seconds, that you can't get hit out of and staggered out of. To finish it, it also has, when we're in Defiant Stance, 20% healing on top of this, which gives 5% just in general from doing damage from our attacks, but it caps at 5 hits, meaning we can hit multiple people with it, which now all heal us as well. So we'd ideally like to be in Defiant Stance once we use this, which we can do that with our other ability. So ultimately, it is a evade substitute as well as a mega riposte that takes multiple hits, can be super easy to use, is large, and gives us healing and energy back, stamina back. So how do you beat that? You just can't. Now let's talk about some of these other little points. We're going to take Perfect Vigilance because ultimately the idea is that if we pull this out, we're still standing in HOTS, so heals over time. We hit our max health, and now every 20 seconds, we're able to get 20% damage reduction and a 20% fortify for 3 seconds. We then take Posture, which once we hit Defiant Stance, we get a 25% damage reduction, which isn't a fortify, so it doesn't count towards fortify cap. It's just a flat damage reduction. And then, again, a lot of these ultimately are like kind of what, like flex points in the end of it. I like to take Guarded Shift. I don't really block with it, so it's kind of a whatever moment for me personally. And then we take Arrow Deflection, which is going to block ranged attacks. Now we can block them using Calamity Counter. You do get a little bit more stamina damage while you're blocking, but that 10% is kind of negligible. I mean, think if you took 30 damage, it would now be 33. So it's not really make or break. What else are we going to do over here? We're going to also go into Blade Honing because we're going to have a bunch of buffs on us. And if we can do a little bit more damage, that translates to more healing. That's it for the sub points. The other really massive thing is Roaring Rupture. So when we look at this, we're then going into Purifying Roar. Now, I want you to read some of this. 1, we do damage, so again, healing, but we do get 8% Fortify stacking up to 3 times per enemy hit. So we can get 24% Fortify on top of the other Fortifies on top of the heals that we get. And this ability has grit, meaning if I start it, I can't get knocked down, I can't get knocked around or staggered. So I can use it right as somebody's about to hit me with something, and now I won't get, that little bit of knockback. And I can then continue with my fluid rotation. And we get into Defiant Stance, which ultimately does reduce our damage taken by another 15% flat, which isn't a fortify amount, so it doesn't count towards fortify cap. as much as I tested. Now, also, when we look at it, we cleanse 2 debuffs. That means any bleeds, dots, weakens, diseases, slows, and roots. So what I've been doing is I've actually been using this right as somebody's about to scream at me if I don't have stamina, and I can use it and I cleanse off everything and I can just keep rolling like nothing happened. You got to time it right. But you can also use this right as somebody, let's say you get riposted for some reason. If you're fast enough, you can hit this and the riposte will hit you, but it doesn't do anything. And this ability will actually reset, which I think is a bug, but it blocks a riposte. And with all of this stuff, we're going to take these other 2 points. There's an interaction here somewhere that allows me to negate a shockwave. And I'll show that when I go into the ability section at the end. But I think it's either because we become uninterruptible, but that's only after a successful hit, so it might depend. But we also cleanse debuffs. So I don't know if it's maybe cleansing the stun right as it happens because the animation, or maybe it's because well, it's not because we're gridded, but ultimately I'm not quite sure. And so it does block shockwaves. So you can use this to remove debuffs, anything that comes at you when you just have a free second, maybe you're in range, you get hit by something. You can use this to cleanse CC, roots, slows. And you can use this to get energy back and act as a riposte and give you plenty of room to get away from things. Now, this also has a knockback component as long as you're using it in Defiant stance. So last thing, we take Undying Defiance because then everything that we're doing, any hit, will give us some healing back. Ultimately, TLDR, this is the build for the Greatsword. Why is it good? We have mobility through this and this and this with our movement cycle. We have repostability with this so that we can keep everybody off of us. We get grab weld or anything and caught, we can keep them away. And then we can use this for a cleanse, a way to get grit. We also completely forgot to mention too, a little bit about this. We go uninterruptible. So I can't get staggered. I can run around for 5 seconds without anything happen, like I'm in stone form. And we get this pushback, and then we have healing on top of everything. Amazing secondary, better than the rapier. Obviously doesn't have the healing output like a void gauntlet, but it will keep you alive if you want to play lower con. All right, party people. So I know you love my deep dives. I get a little verbose, but I give you all the details you need. You can jump around the bookmarks. So let's talk attributes really quick. Here's what I'm going to say. Baseline right now, all I'm playing is 150 con. I don't go higher than that. I have a ton of healing output. You can go way lower than this. Like I was telling you, I was limit testing around 10K health at like 100 con in OPRs and doing some things out in the world. In general, I pretty much just base it off of 100 to 150 con. If you absolutely need to, go up to 200 con if you're really just getting focused. That's kind of like your back pocket solution. And then rest focus. You go max focus food, easy peasy. Those are your attributes. Okay, I'm going to start on the trading post here because I'm reworking all of my gear so that I can fit this into an optimal build. With your Greatsword, you have 3 options for perks, all of which are very viable. 2 are absolutely necessary. When we look into this one, Relentless Freedom. So when we Relentless Rush, it's going to remove all roots and slows. Absolutely necessary. Next one, we have Energizing Counter. When Calamity Counter is activated, immediately gain 10 to 19 stamina. This perk is stronger than the weapon. When you're on a weapon, it is 30 stamina. And last one is, this is kind of the like flex one, sorry, I can't spell, Slowing Rupture. So if we hit them with Roaring Rupture, they now get slowed up to 23% for 5 seconds. Now, if we were to combo a Roaring Rupture and then we spin out, you're now going to have a 43% slow on somebody for 5 seconds. Imagine them trying to chase you. So those are the really important ones when it comes to just the Greatsword. Now let's talk general gear. What perks are we looking for? What do we need for our life staff? All right, so here's what I'm rocking. Again, I'm going to reset. I was running a full like refreshing evasion build. There's some other things going on. I think refreshing evasion is really good for blanket healing. Refreshing, it doesn't, there's value in both of them. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to talk about all healer stuff and everything I'm thinking in a later video. It's been a while since I've been doing some gear stuff, so we'll catch that in the all-encompassing healer video. But anyway, you're going to need Fortifying Sacred Ground. Focus on getting Resil, things like that. Refreshing or refreshing evasions right now, whatever you can fit in. And then you also need to make sure that you have Refreshing Divine Embrace somewhere. And then you also need to make sure that you have Mending Protection on your weapon. Ultimately, Mending Protection is going to be absolute bliss, especially when it's here, because it's just so much better than as if it were on a gear piece, right? In the past, Woda was Biss. But all we're doing here is we're basically dropping Refreshing for Mending Protection in that sort of pivot in an ideal Biss scenario. I still need to get Refreshing Move on here. Don't have the gold for that or have one crafted right now. So we'll talk about that later. But like I was saying too, we need Energizing Counter on our weapon. This is going to give us 30 stamina at max. That is a ton of stamina and it is very nice and easy. Other perks we need, We need at least Sacred. So we're going to look for a Hardy Sacred ring and then, 3 perk. Again, going to upgrade this at some point. And on neck, we want Health, Stam Recovery, insert 3rd perk. On earring, I'm going to highly recommend you go for Banes, the guy that drops the Angry Earth stuff. He drops an earring that is a focus con split that gives you refreshing evasion, and refreshing toast. I'm going to be farming that later. I'll also put out a guide on different healer items to farm. So that's pretty much it in terms of perks and what is absolutely necessary. Determine your optimal gem split. Think about what's going on right now. Thrust damage is kind of annoying from like muskets and things when you're healing, or bows. Having some thrust damage helps. Make sure you have, a good amount of physical versus elemental spread. Really figure out what's best for you. One thing I will say, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but notice the diamond that is in my weapon. That is all I'll say for now. We'll see what changes in the future. Consumables, use focus food, all that stuff like normal if you're a regular New World player. All right, I want to start off this section of going into each ability with the movement loop. So what is like your, hey, I'm running out of my OPR. I'm trying to get there the fastest. What do I do to stay ahead? You're going to roll, Calamity, counter, cancel, spin into that roll because you see how it charges, and now you've got haste. And then you're going, and then you can roll again. You still got that haste rolling. And if you're running refreshing evasion, you can keep going. So that is the optimal rotation. You're going to roll Calamity, roll cancel into spin, and then as soon as you see it go past 50, roll again, and then you have the haste. So let's talk Relentless Rush first. The idea of it is that you always want to combo it with the roar because then you're in Defiant Stance and then you get heal from it. But ultimately, it's your escape. It's gravels, you're slowed, you're rooted. It's going to be your thing to turn you around the corner to get away from everybody else and keep yourself alive. You're just going to use it as sort of like you would have done the tornado spin with a rapier. It's going to be very similar. Again, important things to note are that, one, you get out of movement debilitating effects, but as well, you are applying a slow to anybody you hit with it. And then on top of it, you get that little bit of a healing component. Also, if you're a real gamer, you can use it to help out your team. Say somebody's running away, they caught them in a root or something, but they're still going to live for a little bit. Hit them with it because then everybody gets slowed who gets hit by it, so it's easier to chase them down. Next is Roar. It's kind of multifaceted. You can use it to remove slows and roots. You'll see I get caught in the ice shower sort of scream dilemma here, and I can get out, roll out, and do everything else. I could have just Relentless Rushed, but that is another option. It's also this weird sort of impervious thing to other forms of CC like knockdowns and stuns. So when a hammer boy's coming in, you could pop this instead so that you don't get knocked down by a wrecking ball because of the uninterruptibility as well as the grit component to it. So you can then avoid a lot of other forms of CC. But you can also be walking around and let's say you get shot by a poison arrow, you can take off the weaken, you can take off the dots. Say you got a fire tick on you. You can do pretty much everything or disease so that you can heal more. So if you have some downtime and you're in the back line, pop that really quick, remove your debuffs because we can't cleanse ourselves still. And that is your option to do so. And lastly, it's a free fortify, free heal. With the perk, it slows, it weakens, and knocks everybody back. And the last one's Calamity Counter. Now think of this as the riposte replacement. Pretty much, you can put up a riposte that can get hit as many times as the direction you're facing within a 2-second window. So it doesn't matter what's all coming in. Until your stamina bar is broken, you can keep it up. You can block stuns with it. You can block knockdowns with it. You can block anything in the direction you're facing with Calamity Counter. And on top of that, you get some stamina back. Now, the other thing is you got to keep a track of that stacking buff on the bottom when you have it up. 1, it's just a stagger. 2, it staggers longer. And 3, it's a stagger and a knockdown. So you can use this to set up kills. You can use it to peel for yourself. And it is just a much, much, much better riposte. It's on a relatively short cooldown. You can get it back up pretty much whenever you need it, but it is the sort of premier option to keep yourself alive. And it hits as many people as there are in front of you. And every single hit up to 5 people gives you a little bit of a heal. So it not only peels, it CCs, and it blocks everything in your face. So ultimately, the Greatsword is the best defensive option we have right now. If you're looking for more output, you could go avoid Gauntlet. All right, so for those of you who've been playing so much New World, it's gotten to your brain, it's rotted, and you have no attention span, here is why the Greatsword is our best option with the Life Staff right now. It is just infinitely better in every dimension that the Rapier has. So defensiveness, better with our Calamity Counter. Mobility, I think it's on par. I think it's on par with the Rapier. I think it gives us a little bit more of an option because it breaks so much CC. So that, in my opinion, makes it better. We get innate haste. We have ways to remove roots, and we can fly around. We have everything in the kit. We also have another way just to completely clear debuffs. So we get a ton of defensiveness because it also heals. There's so many fortifies and baked in damage reduction components that you just don't die. It's great, it's new, and we actually get to use the new content. We're not still using a rapier for a year. Again, like I said, if you want to be more healer focused and trying to get the most out of your output, yeah, you're going to have to go VG and throw some orbs out there. But for war scenarios, OPRs, pretty much everything, you can use the Greatsword. Now, thank you for watching. Here's what I have for you. Updates wise, I'm going to start updating the Patreon a bit more, putting some more exclusive content on there, like why you should be using the diamond that I'm using. I'm going to be hitting the Discord more. Again, if you need anything, send me a DM, message me, let me know. I'm always here. Hit the links down below. We have some really nice stuff coming by the time of the next video. Some things I want to announce. But that is all. I hope this wasn't too much for your massive brains. I appreciate it. Please keep doing the weird YouTube stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, tell your grandma, your grandpa, tell everybody you know. I'd appreciate it. But as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And thank you to every single one of you beautiful people for being you. Peace.